Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition, episode 89 of the Lav Epstein Hitting Podcast. Good to be back after a 2-week hiatus. No, we were not locked out, locked out. We were not on strike. We were on a hiatus, a quick hiatus. 2 weeks,
Yep.
if there is such a thing. Good to be back, though. We are breaking down the swing of Buster Posey today, former San Francisco Giants catcher, possibly a Hall of Famer one day. As Ep has said before, catchers are a little bit stiff when they hit, but Buster Posey kind of breaks that trend. So we'll get into his swing in a little bit. Mechanical Breakdown Series, Volume 26, Episode 89. Great to have you in today, listening, watching on the YouTube side. Let me bring in professional evaluator, successful business owner, former coach, friend, co-host. Do you want to introduce your own name this time? I think the show has evolved to the point where you can introduce like your own name, right?
I am Jake.
Jake Epstein. Welcome in.
Jake Epstein, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Great to be here. Great to be here, Jim. Looking forward to looking at an offensive catcher.
You know, one thing that I think everybody's wondering, though, how did you go fishing prior to our recording today when it is very cold where you are?
It was like 55 today. That's why I did it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
55.
Now, I'm not
So,
a fish.
Had a couple hours.
I'm not a fish aficionado, but I'm gonna guess you probably weren't as lucky as you might be in the summer, right? Because it's the winter time.
The winter, I actually caught I didn't have a bite all day. I didn't see a fish all day. And then I hooked into a huge rainbow at the end. Amazingly. Right. One of the biggest fish I ever caught today. So probably like a 21-inch rainbow.
Right.
But yes, typically in the winter time, it's cold. So the fish don't move. The water's cold. They're not as active. They don't eat as much. They get skinny. So you're probably catching like 15% of the fish that you would normally catch in the summer when they're actively feeding. So yeah, it's a lot tougher, but sometimes on warm days you can get out. And I just like doing it because I like to listen to the river. It's very, very relaxing.
You know, that was a point right there. I'm going to cut you off because you should have said what you should have said was I like to listen to our podcast while I'm fishing.
I don't listen to anything, but I'm sorry about that. But I listen to my podcast on the drive to the river.
You do?
Yes. But once I'm in the river, I just want to hear the water.
Well, we haven't been around for 2 weeks. So what have you been listening to for 2 weeks? We haven't done any new episodes.
Oh, I listen to all of our reruns because it just makes me smarter.
Right. So you're listening to yourself talk about your profession and you're making yourself smarter. What a paradox.
Yeah.
It's like Tom Brady watching himself play football.
Yeah.
And well, actually players do that, don't they? See where they can improve.
They critique themselves.
Yeah.
They critique themselves.
So you mentioned that we were on strike. We weren't on strike. Jimmy's sarcasm. Right. We weren't locked down either. Locked down, whatever. Fucking. But and the one thing that was proposed in the new CBA that I want to talk to you about because you have this experience. I wrote it down. Well, I wrote it in my phone here, but there's a couple of things that I think the Players Association or Major League Baseball, one of the two, they may have proposed in the next CBA whenever that gets done. Mm-hmm. The one thing though that intrigues me, the draft and follow. Now that was something that was outlawed years back, almost probably right around a decade ago, where it was done and pushed to the side. But the draft and follow, in other words, you get drafted as a player out of high school, you signed with a team, and I'm just giving the basic breakdown of it. You sign with a team and they have your rights, but you don't start playing for them. You go off to a junior college, you play for, I don't know, a year or two, and then they decide whether or not they want to continue with that relationship. Draft and follow. That's the draft and follow I want to talk to you about. That was something that was proposed, possibly going back into the CBA. Are you for a draft and follow? I'm actually for it. I like the idea of that coming back. And that was around when you were playing.
Yeah, well, I remember it, but I don't know enough about it. To me, it seems kind of silly.
Right. Why is that?
Revisiting it. Well, can you get your money? I remember draft and follow was a junior college. I thought it was a junior college only thing, right?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So do they get their money? They draft you. Do you actually sign? You must not sign a contract. They just follow you, and then they can give you a contract at the end of that junior college season.
Okay.
And then I guess that player can either go to a division or a 4-year school thereafter, or sign a pro contract. It's very confusing. It seems like there's a lot of layers to it.
So the draft and follow, what it is, the team in the amateur draft selects you, and they did not, by a team that did not intend to offer you a contract. Now, again, the typical draft and follow pick, attending junior college, as you mentioned, with at least a year of eligibility remaining. The team that drafted him had a year to decide whether to offer him a professional contract before making the player eligible. So in other words, it goes back to what I said. They draft your rights. You don't get an immediate contract to start.
Kind of stinks, right? Like, what if somebody else was going to draft that player and give him a contract?
Well, they wouldn't if they're considered draft and follow. And that's something that I think could be negotiated too with scouts and whatnot in the organization prior to the actual draft.
Yeah. But what if, I mean, that's a late round person, right? Maybe it's a 35th round. And
well, they don't have 30 plus rounds anymore either.
Yeah. But are they going to, if they do a draft and follow? That's why. Yeah. I don't know.
Some loopholes though. There are still some loopholes.
It used to be kind of cool, but I don't really get it, because you get drafted the next year, like, have a good year. They'll either sign you or you get drafted by somebody else because you had a good year. The only reason they would follow you is because they don't want to pay you and put you into their minor league system. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm a little mum on it. I think it's
no.
I don't know if I buy into it.
Not for it.
But it works. It worked before. So
I think the players though who are real underdogs, for example, who might get drafted in the later rounds, who couldn't get into a Division I institution academically, they would be the guys who would be the best fit for that draft and follow type.
Yeah, but why not put them in rookie ball?
Because the jump, high school to professional baseball. I think it benefits teams, was what I'm trying to say. It benefits teams. It behooves them to do this draft and follow, because now, instead of wasting how much money it might be, $1,000, they're still investing in that player, drafting them and putting them in rookie ball, have them struggle rather than have them play a junior college, which is a good next step, as we know, as we've talked about on this show, to Division I college baseball or to professional baseball.
I like the idea of them going and playing. I just don't understand, why is there no contract? Then they can offer you a contract. I'm going to draft.
No, they draft you, and you basically sign with them. You sign away your professional rights to them, and I think there's an eligibility clause, and I think there's a clause for the amount of time that they have to sign you, a certain window.
And then what that money is when they do sign you. Yeah.
See, I'm looking up right now.
I'm sure the whole draft and follow is what's holding up the entire CBA.
I'm looking up. I just Googled, by the way, looking up draft and follow players. I think Paul Laduca might have been one.
Really?
I think so. That's just off the top of my head. I read that in Baseball America like many, many years ago, when the draft and follow was actually still in place. I can't find it on Google right now, but so you're not for the draft and follow.
Draft and follow. There were a lot of human growth hormones in that era.
Did you know too, baseball, by
junior
the way,
college, like off the charts?
I don't think they contest in junior college, but I could be wrong.
Well, that's what I mean. They would draft these guys and they would get massive junior college.
Yeah. Did you know, by the way, I don't know if the agreement was reached, but the drug prevention program contract was also expired too.
Yeah, I did see that.
Things are really coming apart at the seams. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Well,
but you and I talked about it though prior to this deadline that they set for when spring training was going to be postponed, about how they just didn't meet enough. And it's very strange that you don't have a CBA, you've locked your players out, and you take a whole month off for the holidays not to get together. And you with realizing that you have a ton of ground that you have to make up and come close to getting some sort of deal done.
There was definitely no urgency to trying to get this thing fixed. So they were trying to. Why? Because when you get pushed into a corner, right? Then people make decisions that they may not want to make. So they are going to wait till the 11th hour to make this happen, and hopefully it gets done. But I don't see it being done anytime soon. I hope it gets done by the end of the month. That would be helpful if it did. If it goes into mid-March or later, that's going to create a real problem. But I think the players are fine with it.
So you don't see it. You don't see it because they're supposed to meet a lot pretty much every day this week for a long time during the day. You don't see it getting done within the next couple of weeks.
I don't think so. I mean, we don't. What is today? The 9th. There's only 9 days left in this month, right? 9 or 10 days, a week and a half. So I don't know. I don't see it. Just from the stuff that I've heard from the player side more. I've heard from it just seems like it's not making headway, and maybe that's just their opinion. It's not making headway, but I think it might just be. It'll be they're button heads, and then boom, they'll pound it out in 2 days, kind of thing. I think they're just kind of giving scraps and ideas and this and that, and then when push comes to shove, and it's like, okay, the start of the season is going to get pushed back, then all of a sudden we'll see it get done in 48 hours.
Well, there is a certain deadline. I'm not sure what it was. Jeff Bassan had it on Twitter, the certain deadline that they need to meet to reach opening day. But I think the thing that angers you the most, if you're a baseball fan in general, is like you mentioned before, just overall the lack of urgency. These things happen with the money, the revenue. I think everybody who's a smart fan understands that. But it's the lack of urgency where this could have been done if you were to start a month earlier trying to negotiate this. Then you would be you'd be in a good position to have spring training and to get things started.
Yeah, but they didn't. So now they're they're having to rush. Yeah. I would assume that the first week of March, if it's not done by the end of the first week of March, they're going to run out of spring training time. Right. That's if they really rush spring training. That's a 3-week spring training. So I would say right around, if it's not done by the 3rd or 4th of March, then the start of the season will definitely get pushed back.
Well, don't worry, everybody. We'll still be here for you, giving you your baseball fix.
We don't know if Buster Posey will be, though.
No, he is retired. Buster Posey is retired. We'll get to him in a second. I want to ask you another question too. There was a story out last week about major league teams, just Major League Baseball in general, wanting to cut more player jobs. I think up to 150 player jobs. The pay is already very low. You've been there before, and there's been talk in recent years. Players have spoken up about the pay being so low. They've shown their tax forms. I saw one earlier this week. A guy made $11,000 from playing professional baseball in the minor leagues in the player development system. I'm not sure which team. Doesn't really matter, but you were there at one point getting paid very little to play professional baseball. What's your, I know it's kind of a broad question. What's your overall take on this, where people are starting to now speak up and notice new players about how low their pay is and how it's affecting their lives? But then there's the other side of the coin, where there's older players who are starting to speak up and say, hey, look, we went through it and we got to the major leagues. You either are tough enough to get through it, tough it out, or you're not, and you go off and retire. And you were kind of part of that group. At least you played during that era. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's they're not paid very much money. So I think it's more the quality of life than it is the money itself. If they went and played in the minor leagues, but the housing was covered and paid for, right? The food was good. They got, like quality food, 3 to 4 times a day. They had access to protein shakes or smoothies or protein bars, whatever, hydration, that kind of stuff. Then making $1,000 a month would be fantastic.
Right.
The problem is college athletes are treated better than professional athletes. Not all of them, but the majority of Division I players, they get better food. They get better nutrition for sure. They have, their quality of life is better. The travel is better. So the issue I have with the minor leagues, look, nobody plays minor league baseball because they want to make a living playing minor league baseball. So the old school guys, I get it. Like you're scraping by because you want to be a big leaguer. Like that's why you do it. You want to keep moving up, and you understand that if you don't move up and you're out, then you're out. But you're not going to like have a 401k playing minor league baseball. So that part of it, I don't think they necessarily need to be paid more. I don't think there's not a ton of fans. It's not like the lower minor league, ballparks and franchises are making a ton of money. So no, I don't think they need to make more money. I think more money needs to be spent. I think that the issue is, for instance, when I was in the minor leagues, and it's similar to this today, probably, I made $850 a month. It cost me $250 a month which was cheap, to share a room with a couple other guys. I had to buy food. We didn't really have a spread. Maybe there were some peanut butter sandwiches in the locker room. Yeah. I had to rent a bed, which was $20 or $30. We rented a TV. We had cable. There wasn't internet then, so we didn't have to worry about that. But I probably had I don't know even know if I had a cell phone yet. They were just, I think I had my first cell phone then. But your $850 after taxes is $600, and you've already spent $600 just to pay for your place to live, and now you got to eat somehow. So where does that money come from? It comes from your parents, or it comes from your off-season job of work. Who's going to hire you for 6 months a year, right? So you're going to work ballet, or you're going to wait tables, or work at a bar, or be a bouncer, or whatever it is. So the lifestyle is the lifestyle. You're not going to make a ton of money, but if you could pocket $700 a month at least, because your expenses were paid for, like in spring training, you get meals and you get your apartment paid for. If that just continued, but you don't get.
Glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up. I'm sorry to cut you off. I was going to bring that up though. Here's the problem I have. The players, major league players, I don't care as much. Minor league players though do not get paid during spring training, and I think that is a gross illegality. Let me try that again. Gross illegality. I should have done some voice tongue twisters before I got on the show today. But that, to me, I don't know how they found the loophole in that, but you are there at spring training, minor league spring training. You are working out. You are working for that organization, and they are not paying you. That should be illegal. That's the only problem I have with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, they're requiring you to be there.
Correct, but they're not paying you. They can't do that.
They're not paying you, but it's also practice time.
They're not
selling tickets or concessions to
players when they're rehabbing, trying to get back to the major league level, but they're still getting paid their salaries. That's practice time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my point. They can
that's injury during the season. I
they can pay for the hotels and the lodging all they want, but you can't not pay a player when they're working out in spring training, getting ready for the season. You just can't do that. I find it the equivalent of working with human resources or doing some sort of getaway with a company. You're still getting paid. It's they can't just say, well, we're not going to pay you this week because you're on a
you're right.
Getaway.
Like I'm training some new people at the lab, right?
Right.
They're training the next couple of weeks while we're paying them. Right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like I don't think it's and the owners make so much money that it's wrong. But I mean I get the spring training thing, but I think if you combined it, look, you give the guys, so spring training is an extra month. You give them an extra month of their salary. Minor league spring training's 3.5 weeks. Like it's not very long. It's not nearly as long as big league camp. Correct. So you could just start their contract a month earlier. What's the big deal? But I definitely think the whole housing and nutrition needs to be, and that helps the organization. You're fueling your athletes. You're putting good gas in the car. Like, what? Why would you want them to just live on the bananas and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the clubhouse? Right? Because that's what people do. They try to save their per diem because there's no money. Or what are they using $20 a day on meal wise? Right? They're going to McDonald's. That's terrible. So feed them, put them in a good place, cover their expenses, give them their $1,000 a month. I think that makes everybody happy.
All right, well, let's get into our listener question before we get to Buster Posey. And this comes to us from Tom Johnson, who has emailed us before. He is a loyal listener, I assume. It's a good question about Chris Taylor's mechanical. I don't know if it's a question.
And his son might be the best 8-year-old swing that I've worked with. They're part of the online academy.
Right. Oh, how do you, what is that? By the way,
he may have started at 7, this kid.
Yeah.
The online academy.
Yeah, I want to hear about on the online academy, and I want to hear about the lab. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm very intrigued because you just mentioned you hired new people, you're training them,
so
you're paying them to train, which is what, real companies. Go ahead.
I keep thinking the Johnsons are from like the Northeast, but for some reason they might be like from the Virginia area.
No, I think I know. Yeah. Well, you know what? You're probably right.
Does it say?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Anyway, so yeah, they started, and this kid was so raw and just starting like kid pitch, at age 7 or 8. And so they sent in the swing. I said, okay, this is what we need to work on. And we just built it like one layer at a time. Let's work on the upper body here. Let's work on his hands and elbows. Boom. They were diligent for a couple months. Okay, now let's build in a stride. Okay, now we're starting to, combo those two. Now we can work the stride with the upper body moves. Okay, let's slow that down more. Let's, increase his knee depth. Anyway, this kid's going to be awesome. He worked so hard. There's nothing more I like more than working with players from, 3,000 miles away or 2,000 miles away. And we create a relationship because they send in videos every week and I'm able to help them along the process with drills and analysis. So anyway.
So for more information, log on to, what is it?
FCHitting.com.
Yeah.
Right.
And the lab. Anything coming up at the lab this week that I should know about?
I've spent some good time in the lab. Lab's getting busy. High school season starting. So we're trying to get all our high school dudes in there between games. So it's a fun time to be at the lab. This is a very busy time of year, and it's so much fun when we have a lot of activity going on, on the property, whether it's in the cages, running guys through live at bats, whether it's outside practices. It's a fun time of year.
All right. So for more information, log on to thelabbcs.com. And of course, you can call. Let's get to our listener question. This comes to us via Tom from Northern Virginia. You're right. He is from Northern Virginia. He writes via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Hey, Jim, in the Chris Taylor mechanical breakdown, you both noted how similar the Dodger swing was between Taylor and Betts. The Virginia Baseball Coaches Association had a Zoom session with Chris Taylor and his UVA coach, Coach O'Connor, on the 15th. I asked Chris about his swing and mechanical influence. After struggling to stay in the minors, Taylor noticed that smaller guys like Mookie Betts were able to hit the ball with power, whereas Taylor had no home runs up to that point and couldn't solidify a permanent spot on the roster. So Taylor decided he needed to change his swing. He initially used YouTube videos of Josh Donaldson and hitting instructor Bobby Tewksbury. He did tee work and experimented with the Donaldson big leg kick, but wasn't successful. When he was in Southern California, Robert Van Scoyoc, did I say that right? I'm not sure I said that right. Sorry, Robert, do you know of him? Robert Van Scoyoc?
Yeah, isn't he Dodger hitting coach now?
Okay. Saw Taylor working in the cage and asked him if he wanted help. They spent 2 weeks together. And the offseason came. Taylor spent the entire offseason traveling back and forth from his home in Virginia Beach to Southern California, working with Scoyoc. The upcoming season had his breakout year, and Chris hit 21 home runs. For hitting drills, he said one of his favorites to come back to is a drill very similar to Jake's two-hand upper body drill. So it seems that Betts and Scoyoc were big influences. Breakdown series was excellent. Keep up the great work. And that is from Tom, loyal listener from Northern Virginia. Not as much a listener question, but nonetheless still
that's awesome.
Thank you, Tom, for that email.
Yeah, awesome content for sure. Yeah, sometimes you got to make a change. We talked about Justin Turner making that change. And changing from, really a guy at Fullerton that was a bunter. He was a second baseman that bunted a lot and wasn't, considered a highly offensive guy, and came up, with the Mets, and he hit a little bit and played because he was versatile. And then all of a sudden, same thing. So what I see with those guys is, they have bigger weight shifts. That's the big thing that they adjusted. Those guys all have bigger rhythms and bigger weight shifts, and they sink into the ground. All the other stuff that they talk about, they probably tried to create more torque and separation, which, again, my dad kind of brought to light, 25 years ago, but never gets credit for some reason. It's really amazing when I read and see all these things. So Tom Verducci just wrote something about Yelich. I read on Sports Illustrated, and was it Sports Illustrated or ESPN? I think it was Sports Illustrated.
Verducci works for Sports Illustrated, yeah.
About separation, hips, and whatnot. And it was like, my dad, Ted Williams said it right in 1972 or whatever that was when he wrote that book. And then my dad kind of brought it to the public in the late 90s. But now everybody's a genius, talking about it. So it's like, if it's in a medical journal, right, you have to be quoted. So it'd be nice if my dad was, given a little bit of credit once in a while. He did put it into text a long time ago.
Well, this is the problem. With,
anyway, my soapbox is over now.
Well, no, I was going to say this is the problem though with the new school coaches and they just it's just word salad. They like to use bigger words and bigger terms for what was used before them and generations before them, and that's the problem that I think old school coaches.
Yeah, and you put it on YouTube
have.
And it's yours, right?
Right, and then you're right.
Yeah, but regardless, that guy's a good hitting coach because he communicates information properly. So content means nothing if you can't get the player to change, and he obviously gets players to change. So I have a lot of respect for people that are able to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you again, Tom. And if you have any questions, everybody email us jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting on both Twitter and Instagram. Let's get into Buster Posey here. Mechanical Breakdown Series Volume 26. I'm just looking over Buster Posey's numbers. He never hit outside his final year, played in 114 games. He hit 257, but outside of that, he never hit below 280 at the major league level. His career batting average, 304. He hit 100 and his career batting average. Okay, let me start over. I made a mistake. He had 257 in 2019, but
it's hard to find a good podcast these days. Let me tell you,
it's hard to find a good podcast host these days. His final year, he had 304, and he played in 113 games. His career batting average, 302.
What was he before his injury?
The injury. He had a couple of injuries. Which one are you talking
about? But the one where that guy slid into him and broke his ankle.
That was his rookie year, I think. Or right around his rookie year.
No, that was his rookie year.
It was 2010 when that happened. No. That was 2011 when it happened because he only played in 45 games that year. After that, the year after that, he came back and he did this in succession. 336, 294, 311, 318, 288, 320, 284, 257, 304.
Really? Must have been.
Well, he's a career 302 hitter. He hit 158 home
some,
runs in his career, 729 RBIs in his career, played in 1,371 games, 663 runs, 1,500 hits. And here's the kicker. Here's what I like. He walked 540 times, struck out 721. Pretty good ratio, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he could hit, and honestly, if Posey was, and he was a great catcher, but if he was a first baseman and he didn't have injuries, he didn't get beat up, I bet he would have been a lifetime 320 hitter. He just got beat up. But I'll tell you what, the guy. I mean, we're going to look at his swing here, but he was so solid, fundamentally solid, and really was a can't miss guy. Super great human being, out of Florida State, and. I would say the Giants did a pretty good job with that draft pick.
I might as well just ask you. Well, he played 12 years. I might as well just ask you straight out. Mm-hmm. Is he a Hall of Famer? You think?
Oh wow!
I don't know if the numbers are there.
Yeah, I don't think the numbers are there.
Yeah.
I do think, the World Series, having 3 World Series, is Terry Bradshaw Hall of Famer?
I think he is.
Okay. Because his numbers weren't great either, but he won Super Bowls because he had a great defense. He's very upset about that, not being known as one of the GOATs.
Tell you,
But he played on a really.
Are you against Terry Bradshaw today, or what's the deal?
No, he was so upset that he's not mentioned with like Brady and Manning.
Well, that's a little ridiculous.
Because I don't know. I mean, Bradshaw won some Super Bowls. I don't know how many, but they also had that steel curtain defense, right? They had a good team. So what I'm saying is, Posey's a winner, right? Like he handled staffs. He won 3 World Series. So does that put him in the Hall of Fame? He was a leader on those 3 teams. He was an offensive captain on those 3 teams. That's tough call. But I think if you just go by the numbers, I'm not sure that would get him in. But you never know. Sports writers like him. That's always helpful.
Yeah, we talked about that, the whole Hall of Fame. But Terry Bradshaw's career statistics, since you asked: 212 touchdowns, 210 picks. His rookie year, ready for this? 1970 with the Steelers. Played 13 games, started 8. He threw 6 touchdowns, 24 picks. Can you imagine if a first round quarterback in today's world did that? They'd be considered like a bust with it. They would be done.
Did, yeah. Drew Lock did that, and it wasn't that bad, but they were going to run him out of town.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning led the league in interceptions his rookie year, I believe. Yeah. Well, I actually like it. I think those guys, they're not afraid. They're go down there slinging it. And, they
like
fail
Eli Manning, for example. Yeah, he likes to sling the old pigskin.
Yeah, I don't know if Posey will make it. I think it'll be close. I think people want him to make it, but if you go by the numbers by themselves, it might be tough. But you know what? Career 300 hitter in this day and age, pretty good.
I'm making a pact for myself, by the way, and those watching on the YouTube side can see this. Next week, it's like every week, it's like Jim versus the lighting round 89. Next week, I'm going to have better lighting. I promise everybody watching.
I don't know what's happening. I don't even.
It's getting darker out. I don't know what,
You just look like a silhouette. Oh, you're in a new room. There's no fan behind you.
Yeah, you finally noticed. I'm in a new
room. The lighting is behind you. You need to bring it in front. See, I still have some sunlight here in Colorado.
Right. I'm gonna move the lighting next week. It's like turning into a set now. I gotta create like a set every week when we.
Yeah, you kind of look like when on those. What are those shows called? Datelines, where they have the people.
Oh, right.
And you can just see their silhouette. That's what you look like. But Jim versus the lighting. All right. Well, let's get after.
Yes, Buster Posey Mechanical Breakdown Series, Volume 26. Let's get into the swing breakdown.
Okay. So, again, this is the podcast breakdown of Buster Posey. We have kind of a pitch that's in. And I have another pitch that's low and away, and we'll be able to look at that one in a minute. But the best part about Posey, I remember reading something where he said, sometimes I hit my helmet with my bat as I'm bringing my hands through. And that's because he has the shortest approach to the ball you could find. So if we bring Posey to what, we call the short approach, all Epstein hitting guys. It's this position here where the chest starts to open. Notice how close that bat gets to his shoulder. Notice how close it gets to his neck. Notice how close it gets to his head. You cannot cover pitches in and keep them fair unless you do it. What's also cool about this swing is, a lot of people will do that and then they get tied up, right? They don't extend. But notice how he still gets his bat head out in front. He still gets his right elbow in front of his rib cage. Okay, his right elbow angle, if we look at it, is much bigger than 90 degrees. Okay, it's still at 113. That's typically where it is on most pitches, 110 to 120. But look at the catcher's mitt, right? I mean, this pitch is inside. I don't know how far in, I don't know if the catcher was set up outside and it ran in that much. So he had to reach in, but you could definitely tell that it's an inside pitch because of how close that bat stayed. What I love about what Posey does is he keeps that bat vertical for a really long time. Okay, you can see that barrel is straight up. His top hand here, as he's rotating, is facing forward. It's not facing the sky yet. Okay, he hasn't lost the barrel. The barrel's staying above his hands for a really long time. When does the barrel finally drop below his hands? You know, not until right here, not until he gets that knob way out in front of his lead elbow. So it's just a fantastic, his hands are so good covering those pitches. Notice this angle between his forearms. Okay, 83 degrees. Notice how consistent it is. It's 83 degrees there. It's 83 degrees there. He doesn't have any manipulation happening with his back elbow, right? He's pulling with his lead arm. He's getting the knob out in front. Notice how still his head is. It's kind of creepy how still the head is, but it's great. And then if we look at this pitch plane, here's the ball here. Let's see if I can get a number on that. Such a great video because of the frame rate, the slow motion clarity. So it's a fastball, right? It's only dropping whatever, close 5 or 6 degrees. But again, look at his barrel. Where does his barrel go? Does it dump underneath that green line deep in the zone? No. He doesn't get his barrel to that line until his front knee, his front shin. Okay, that's because you got to hit it out in front. If you let this ball travel, what's he gonna do? He's gonna get jammed. Okay, so you got to hit it out in front. Well, if you hit it out in front, the only way to do that is to come in a little bit steeper, and that's why if you teach players to throw the barrel or turn the barrel behind them, they're not going to be as consistent doing this, hitting balls out in front. And he launches this, it's like probably 8 degrees off the bat. It was a low line drive into left field, right? It wasn't, it wasn't an extra base hit, but it's just a solid swing. And look how long he's on that green line. Okay, pretty consistent. He could have barreled that up probably back here at his knee, definitely there, and then definitely out in front. So he's probably on plane on a pitch in for, roughly 20 inches or so. Okay. Yeah. And again, no wrist roll. He doesn't cover up his left wrist until really late. This is also a telltale sign that the pitch was inside. Look at where his right arm extends in the bat. See how that's down the left field line or foul? Okay, that oftentimes that's how you know where the pitch was. So I'm going to load in another swing here. Okay, so just kind of bear with me. We can talk through it. Jim, if you have any questions.
No questions. I want to remark about how you always talk about cutting the trap, if you will, with the bat.
Yeah.
And he does it perfectly.
Yeah, he's like the trap master.
Yeah.
he really is. Like he's, and I always tell players, if we're going to teach that, keeping the bat vertical, that's what you got to do. So, Jim, if I look here, just kind of bear with me. We can edit this if necessary, but I want you to have this video too.
Oh, you're sending it to me.
Well,
Well, while you were talking, I turned on the TV behind me, and now I have a little bit more light on me, but I'm more bluish.
You're like a Smurf.
It's like I'm in the club.
You're a sad, sad man. All right, maybe I can't send it to you.
Oh,
that's so weird.
Well, I will say that with Posey, he gets great leverage. Hits behind a firm front side. And you can see, I guess you can see in his mechanics, his swing really has never changed from the time he got to the major league level to the time he retired. And I think it's incredible how short he is to the baseball and how long he stays on plane for. It's really a pretty swing. And I think if it's not built, I mentioned the 158 home runs that he had in his career. It's not built for power, his swing, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it's built for gap to gap. And I think that's
sure
why he didn't have as many home runs as he did, but that's why he hit for such a high average. I did get that new video, by the way. So let me get into that here. All right.
So let's break. So this is a low pitch, and I don't know what year this is, but I'm pretty sure this is an older, like he's younger in this video. Okay. But if you bring him to toe touch and heel plant, it's as good as it gets. Okay. So at heel plant, look at the depth of his front shoulder. Look at the bat, the barrel, middle of the barrel is kind of right over his head. The knob's facing back towards his catcher. Okay. Notice this angle between his bat and his left forearm. Okay. It's really tight. Okay. That's going to create a ton of whip. But the key is with that angle between the bat and the forearm. So this guy right in here. Okay. Watch how he stores it, because he doesn't throw the barrel away from his head, right? He's storing that energy as he pulls through. So see how he's pulling the knob down more towards his belt, towards his belly button. But as he's doing that, see how the barrel stays up. Meaning he's keeping this angle right in here between his forearm and his bat. Most people in this position, that barrel would be way out here outside of his shoulder on a low pitch. They would throw that barrel out. Okay, or try to turn it behind him more. He's holding that right wrist angle. So again, we're looking at this pitch. Here's his approach position. Again, when the bat's parallel to the pitch, it's still beautiful. Okay, the knob is in front of his front elbow. The bat's, the barrel hasn't dropped below his hands yet. If we look at this pitch down here, pretty sure that's the pitch there. I mean, this pitch is, I don't even know if it's a strike.
No, it's not. I don't think it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 10 degrees, so it's probably a breaking ball. But notice how he planes out. He doesn't plane out until his front ankle. And then watch how he extends his right arm and his hand through that plane. Do you know how hard it is to get on plane with a pitch that low, which is below his knees? Like, it's really hard. It's much easier to get on plane with high pitches. But low pitches, typically people will be on plane for like 2 or 3 inches. Notice how long his barrel's on plane for, probably at least 14 to there before it comes off. So if you look at his power V here, this is why, you have to look at video, and you can't teach the same swing to everybody on the same pitch. You can't just take dry swings off a tee all the time, right? You have to move the ball around and see how they're going to react. But if you look at his power V, it looks like he swung straight down here. Yeah. Right. His power V is facing the ground. His barrel is pointed towards the ground, somewhere between home plate and the pitcher's mouth. Okay. Yet he swung up through the ball 10 degrees through the contact zone. Okay. So it's a really cool swing to see how players adjust to low pitches. Okay. And again, what's the adjustment? If you look at him at launch, he looks the same. He's pulling his hands down and forward. Now, the key to that is a lot of players pull their hands down right here, but they do that on all pitches. And then they have to pull the knob back up to their chest, and that creates a lot of problems. So what you're going to do, for instance, Thomas Johnson can do this because he's an Epstein Online Academy member, but I have videos in there about, hitting the low pitch and hitting the high pitch and what the adjustments are and what the hand path is. But that's exactly what he's doing here. Okay. Like on a low pitch, your hands are going to have to end up here. On a high pitch, they're going to have to end up more at your letters. So the more efficient you can be getting to those areas from launch. Okay. If he's going to go to a low pitch, it might be like this. Okay. Or a medium pitch. And then a super low one might be like that. That's the key. But if you have downs and ups with those moves, if they're shallow like he's doing there, we're good. If they go down and up, it's not good, when you're reviewing video. So anyway, just a cool pitch to kind of look at. Since we looked at a pitch that was up and in, this is obviously a pitch that is low and away, looking at the catcher's mitt. Okay, it's not even a strike, but when you can hit, you can hit. So if you're going to copy one thing of Buster Posey, it's number one, his stride is so beautiful. Like, he's so stable with his right hip and his right knee and his right foot. And he has a little bit of a leg kick and a weight shift. So that's number one. Number two, his launch position is great, front shoulders down. And then number three is from launch to short approach, whether it's a high pitch or a low pitch, that bat always stays really close to his head as he rotates. He keeps that top hand really vertical. And that's why he hits for a high average. And that's why his power numbers weren't huge. But his power numbers also weren't huge because he played in San Francisco. And that is not a good ballpark to hit. And he was a good right center field hitter. And you're not going to hit home runs to right center there in San Francisco. He also didn't, later in his career, the balls got really hard. Okay. But he was older and kind of beat up by then. So, for me, his swing could have been, built for more home runs, but it was definitely built for, a high average kind of guy.
Yeah. And he gets great torque too. And you can really see it on that second video.
Yeah.
With where his chest is facing with the letters as compared to his lower body.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, he's mechanically speaking, if you're going to, look at a player and look for checkpoints, stride, launch, short approach, regular approach, contact, power V, a lot of the stuff that we do with our certification training, he's a model citizen, I mean, he's a really good player to look at because it fits pretty much every player. Like you could teach, if I'm going to teach an 8-year-old, like that would be the baseline moves I would teach an 8-year-old. If I had a 25-year-old that needed to adjust some things, you would go to Posey as well. And you could use, and try to get your hands and try to get your body and your knees and your shoulders all in the same position.
Well, great stuff right there. Mechanical Breakdown Series, Volume 26 of Buster Posey. We're going to take a little bit of a break from our mechanical breakdowns. And next week, we're changing the topics up a little bit. We are going to talk about, because spring training is here for some minor leaguers, should be here for major leaguers. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about a spring training approach offensively and how you should go about that. The proper spring training approach if you are a professional baseball player and how to get ready for the season. So we'll be talking about that next week. We'll be doing more mechanical breakdowns. We did Corey Seager, so we'll be breaking down
We've
Trey
done
Turner.
A lot of breakdowns.
Yeah, we'll be doing Trey Turner here in about 8 weeks, about a month. So we got a lot to do. Yes, we got a lot to do. So, that's coming up next week, though, our spring training.
We also have some lighting work we need to work on.
And some lighting. I'm in the club right now. Or some, yeah. Next week, that is next week. Yes, spring training approach. Do you have anything else before because we already did our promos, that's out of the way. So do you have anything else that you need to get to before we sign off?
I don't think so.
No.
All you players getting ready for the season, make sure you get your work in.
Yes.
And all of you players that submitted video to the online academy, I will get back to them as soon as possible. Apparently, all of you wanted to send them in on the same day, which happened to be Friday, the 18th of February.
Mm-hmm.
You got to spread them out, peeps. No, anyway, so for those of you that are waiting, if I haven't gotten back to you by the time you hear this, know that they should be done very, very soon.
All righty. Well,
usually I get them done the next day, but I got like 40 people that sent them in.
Yeah.
Takes time.
All righty. Well, thank you for listening, everybody watching on the YouTube side. Be sure to follow us on social media, and we will talk to you next week. Take care.